I binge read more Julia Quinn novels. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now, it's been not a long time since I made a Bridgerton video and not a long time since I made a historical romance video, but I'm really enjoying my historical romance high, so I'm bringing you guys along with this journey. So hopefully you guys are still enjoying these videos. This video is going to be a review on the series, the Bevelstoke series. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with Julia Quinn's works, basically she has a many series that kind of bleed in with each other. Now, she has her most famous series, Bridgerton, which you have seen on Netflix, and that is everybody's talking about right now. And then we kind of have like another series called the Smythe-Smith series, and then we have the Bevelstoke series. Now, this video is going to be centered around Bevelstoke series, and throughout all these series, what I would like to say is that they actually bleed within each other. Julia Quinn created this whole world, and all these characters know of each other, and they kind of know that Bridgertons exist, and they are just kind of like families that are friends of the Bridgertons and things like that. So you will actually see a lot of Easter eggs in each of these books, in each of these stories, and then you guys can see like a deeper dive into these characters as well and learn about their love stories. So I think it's very interesting, and I think it was very smart of Julia Quinn to create a world like this, mostly because things do get complicated when there's more details added, and things get more complicated when you're creating stories of these characters that you thought were side characters but were not. So this is the Bevelstoke review video where I'm going to be reviewing the 3 books in the series, and then I'm going to actually be doing a rant video at the end. And the reason why I put it at the end is because I know that sometimes a lot of people don't like negative reviews, and they don't want to hear anger in voices and people just calling books dumb and things like that. So I would rather prefer to keep the negative energy toward the end, where you guys can also make the decision of whether or not you want to listen to the rant review. But let's get started with reviewing the series in general. So the Bevelstoke trilogy is 3 books, and these 3 books have 3 main writers. And basically they are writers in the sense that they are always constantly writing in something. One person likes to write in a journal every single day. The other person actually likes to kind of make up like stories in their head, and they'll have like a title, and then it'll be by the character's name, and then it'll be kind of like a story that references to the title. And then we have our last book that is basically about a character who is writing underneath a pen name, and that he is actually a very famous author. I really like this idea because it seemed like everybody had a thing, and it was a very similar thing, but it was also a very different thing. So I thought that this idea was very quirky, and I kind of really enjoyed it. So the first book in the series is actually called The Secret Diaries of Miranda Cheever, and this one is a book about falling for your best friend's older brother. And Miranda Cheever is described to be as an ugly duckling. She is very tall, she's very lanky, she's very pale, she has very dark hair, and she has very dark eyes, and that deemed by London society is that she's not attractive, and she really feels it because all her friends kind of tend to make fun of her except for her best friend, who is Olivia Bevelstoke. And basically Miranda is 10 years old when we first meet her, and Olivia's older brother is named Turner, and he's actually 19 years old. Now, with this age difference of 9 years, it feels kind of weird when we walk into the prologue of, you know, such a big age difference, and especially because she's a minor and he's already a grown adult, and I just felt kind of uncomfortable. So basically Miranda confesses to Turner that she's not feeling attractive, and Turner says some magical words to her that make her feel that, you know what, one day she will grow into herself and she will find herself beautiful. And then Turner suggests to Miranda that actually she should write in a journal every single day so she could remember everything that she has thought, and then she can go back one day and look at how she was so young and she was so naive, thinking that she wasn't gorgeous when she truly is, and when she actually falls in love with herself. And this is kind of their romance, what happens afterwards when Turner returns back to society after the death of his wife. His wife is not a good person, and she is actually really happy that she has passed away, because that means that now he is free from her and her evil ways. And then Turner has to mourn for a whole year, and he's kind of beaten up about it. He's turned into an alcoholic, and he just wants to kind of get away from society. But since Olivia is entering to society, trying to find a husband, he kind of has to be there for the family, but he's not really helping out the family much. He's making a lot of sarcastic remarks, and he's making everything a little bit harder for everyone, especially Miranda, who is a very close family friend since she's best friends with Olivia. And Miranda is upset that Turner is so upset because Miranda once fell in love with him and thought that Turner was this great bundle of happiness and joy and sunshine in her life. But now Turner kind of changed into this really shallow man and to be a skeleton of what he used to be. And basically, this is the story of Miranda and Turner being stuck in situations where they find themselves in close proximity and that they find themselves actually liking each other, and Turner being very attracted to Miranda despite Miranda still being kind of the ugly duckling in the group. Turner learns to fall in love with her for her mind and for her personality as opposed to for just her beauty and just her looks. So this one I didn't really like, and this is the one that I'll be doing a rant about so that I can further explain why I only gave this book a 1 out of 5 stars. And I also want to quickly note that these books actually read out of order. I read book 3 first and then I went backwards. So I read book 3, 2, and then 1. And I just want to say that I think I did the best job at doing that, because what happened was that book 3 I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. Then book 2 I gave kind of like 4.5 out of 5 stars, and then book 1 I gave 1 out of 5 stars. So that would mean that if I read book 1, then I would be discouraged to read book 2, and then book 2 would discourage me from reading book 3 if I hadn't already read book 3 to begin with already. But let's talk about the second book. So the second book in the series is called What Happens in London, and now this one follows the love story of Olivia, who I mentioned in the last book. She is the meddling little sister. She's always finding herself in sticky situations because she just can't stop getting into people's businesses. So what happens when her friends gossip and tell her that her new neighbor next door is actually someone who was accused of killing his wife? So Olivia is obviously intrigued by this, so she decides to actually spy on him through her window, and she thinks that she's doing it very discreetly. She's looking out through her curtains. She's just trying to like record everything that he does the whole entire day, because what happens, I think the buildings are right beside each other, and then she looks down at him and then he looks up at her, so then she has like the great advantage point of looking directly into his study and seeing what he does every single day. And she grows bored by it because he's really just in the study reading documents, looking at paperwork, and constantly always working. So our hero is actually named Harry, and this is the person that Olivia is actually spying on. Now, Harry is described to be as a very stoic character. He's very serious all the time. He's quite boring is what Olivia describes him to be, because he only focuses on his work. He's a workaholic. He likes looking at his work and he likes doing his work. And what's the secret behind his work is that he actually works for the War Office. He joined the army when he was 19 years old, and he quickly rose in the ranks because of his intelligence. He's able to speak a lot of languages, and he's able to translate a lot of secret documents from the government. So he's actually boring, but he has a very interesting job, and he finds himself getting into danger a lot of the times when his enemies kind of come at him and try to ruin his life. So basically, Harry doesn't appreciate the fact that Olivia is spying on him, and this entire time Olivia thinks that she's very stealth and that she is actually doing a very good job at spying, but Harry actually knows that she's spying, and Harry is having none of it. Harry is mad that Olivia could be so nosy all the time, so they kind of have this very love-hate relationship when they finally meet each other at a ball, and then they get into talking and they have this whole conversation of basically Olivia spying on him. So if you guys are into an enemies to lovers romance, then definitely pick this one up. It also had a bodyguard romance to it as well, because Harry realizes that Olivia could be in danger, and then afterwards Harry has to kind of protect her at all times and try to keep close proximity with her, despite, you know, Harry saying that he doesn't want to be with Olivia. He actually finds himself being drawn to Olivia all the time, to her warmth and to her sunshine ways and to basically her happiness and everything that Harry never thought that he could have. And then also I liked Harry's background as well, because Harry comes from a troubled background. He comes from a dark past of where his father is actually not a good role model figure. His father was actually a drunk, and he got himself into a lot of messy situations when Harry was younger. He would show up to occasions drunk and embarrass the whole family. His his mom would be very dismissive of it because his mom didn't know what to do since she didn't feel like she had the right to speak about her husband's illness and her husband's addiction to alcohol. And then afterwards, the family had a lot of hatred towards the father and hatred towards the mom in effect because they didn't think that the mom was protecting the three children from the public scorn. So Harry comes from such a dark background that he doesn't feel like he is capable of happiness. Olivia is a person that kind of can bring sunshine and daylight into his very dark nights. So I really enjoyed this opposites attract novel, and I really loved Harry as well. But the reason why I took a star off of this book is mostly because it ran a little bit slower than I was expected. You know, when I read the synopsis of this book, I kind of jumped into it really quickly because I was just so intrigued by the fact that Olivia is so meddling and that she is getting herself into trouble with this very hot guy. So I thought it was going to be a little bit more fast paced, but it wasn't. But it's still really enjoyable because it was very funny as well. It included a lot of dry wit humor coming from Harry and also from his cousin Sebastian. And it also came from different side characters too. So definitely check out this book. Still, I would highly recommend you to read this one. So the last book in the series is 10 Things I Love About You. And this one was actually a reread of mine that I read back in high school. I really enjoyed this book. Now, 10 Things I Love About You, I think could be loosely based on the movie 10 Things I Hate About You, except for this is the opposite. It's 10 reasons why our main character loves our other main character. Now, this book follows two characters named Annabelle and Sebastian. And basically, Annabelle is a country girl. She came from the country and she needs to fulfill her purpose of marrying someone so that he can provide for her and her really big family. I think she has 8 siblings. And basically, Sebastian's thrown into the mix when Sebastian enters back to London to finish off some business purposes, and he stumbles upon Annabelle and they have this kind of meet cute in this garden. And basically Sebastian is quickly charmed by how beautiful she is and how, you know, gorgeous she is and how funny and easy she is to talk to, and Sebastian really likes her and wants to see more of her. However, Annabelle has a secret, and that is that she is already kind of in talks to marry an earl, and this earl is the complete opposite of Sebastian. This earl is so described to be so ugly looking, like he's twice her age, he's big, he's oily, he's greasy, he smells, he does not have the healthiest diets, his personality is rank, and everything about him is just horrible. And Annabelle is cringing at the fact that she's going to be stuck in a loveless relationship and marriage with this man. So Annabelle wants to have some fun. So when Sebastian kind of charms and talks to her and gives attention to her, Annabelle is quickly smitten by Sebastian. What happens is that Sebastian realizes that Annabelle is actually just not like a normal girl in the city, but she is actually coming into the city to marry her uncle, which is the earl. And now Sebastian is kind of found himself in a sticky situation where he wants to protect Annabelle and wants to make sure that her happiness is protected, but also not knowing what he could possibly do. So they actually decide to fake court each other, and they decide to have like a relationship with each other to kind of fend off the uncle and his evil ways. And this one was very funny and very sweet throughout the whole book. Basically what happens is that our main character Annabelle writes lists in her head, and it's always up to 10 things. And it's like 10 things of like what she should do in a certain situation, 10 things she loves about a person, 10 things she hates about a person, and things like that. And I really enjoyed the story. It was just a very fluffy, sweet piece that I feel like anybody could fly through very quickly. It also had a little bit of action towards the end, which I really enjoyed. And I feel like these 3 books, it had action towards the end to keep the reader intrigued, and I really appreciate that action. So here we are with the rant portion of this video. So basically, I read The Secret Diaries of Miranda Cheever last, even though it was the first book in the series, and thank God I did it, because honestly, The Secret Diaries of Miranda Cheever was just an awful book. I gave this 1 out of 5 stars, and it's the worst book that I've read this year, I feel like, even though I did read a Kathleen E. Woodwiss book, and I hated that one, and I filmed a rant video of that one, but then I didn't collect my thoughts properly, and so I just never ended up posting that one. But this one, I would try to do my best with reactions to why I hate this book. Now, number 1 reason why I hate this book is mostly because I don't like the fact that Miranda and Turner, our 2 main characters, kind of have this meet cute, or how we meet them is when Miranda is 10 years old and Turner is 19. It's just kind of gross to me how Turner is a full adult by our standard and our society age, And Miranda is 10 years old and likes Turner, who is 19. I just find it kind of gross that we're setting up a relationship based on this, even though Turner does not have any romantic things for Miranda, and Turner never really makes a move on Miranda when she's 10 years old. But I just don't like the fact that it was just kind of there and this was what we were working with at the very beginning. Now, it can be argued that, this book takes place in the future, and then, she's of age, she's an adult now, and he is a grown man, but it still feels kind of creepy because it kind of feels like a brother-sister relationship, and there was just this really unsettling feeling in me every time I read this book, because I just kept thinking, it was kind of weird. It was kind of weird. And it was kind of weird. And then, so we fast forward into a couple years in the future, around 10 years in the future. Now Miranda is 19 years old, which I still feel like is very young in my personal opinion. I feel like 19 is still young. You just became an adult by today's society age, and you're still new to everything, because obviously back then ladies didn't know much and ladies didn't date around, because you don't date, you court, and then you get married. And then afterwards, Turner comes back into society because basically his wife has cheated on him so many freaking times and locked him down in this loveless marriage, because she managed to convince Turner that she was pregnant with his child, but it was really her lover's child, and Turner has been bamboozled into this marriage. And when his wife goes riding off into the sunset and falls off a horseback and breaks her neck, he realizes that she was riding off to the sunset to go meet her lover. And now Turner is so bitter and so warped from this that he turns to alcohol. He doesn't want to mourn his wife. He thinks his wife is a cow, basically, and does not care for her at all. But he turns into this creature that nobody likes because he's so negative all the time. But he returns back to society, into his family's home, and kind of makes all these nasty, sarcastic, mean remarks. He's a drunk. He's nothing that I can really appreciate in a hero unless he redeems himself, right? So this entire time when I was reading this book, I was thinking to myself, Turner's going to be nicer. Turner's going to realize that he made mistakes, and he's going to apologize to everyone he insulted. But really, I don't want to spoil it, but he didn't. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So Miranda and Turner finally meet each other again, and Miranda is still in love with Turner despite not really seeing him for the last 10 years, despite Turner being married to another girl for 10 years. So I'm starting to think Miranda here is really just in love with that one particular moment in her life where Turner convinced Miranda that she is going to be this beautiful woman, that she's going to fall in love with herself, and that she's going to grow to love. And I can't really sympathize with Miranda, because she was just kind of this character that was lost. Like, she just kept thinking Turner was this beautiful person, putting him on a pedestal, when in reality Turner is not, and Turner should be thrown into the dumpster and kind of like set on fire at some points, because I hated Turner so much. Turner was very mean and very evil towards people too as well, because Turner actually kind of knew that Miranda kind of had a crush on him. Miranda was there, Miranda was available. So there was this one scene where Turner actually forces himself on her, kisses her, and she is afraid. She wants it because she likes Turner, but she actually says that she's afraid and she doesn't want it anymore, and she fights him off. Turner, in return, kind of like insults her and then kind of apologizes afterwards, and then ignores her in the preceding chapters, and is just unredeemable. I just don't understand why Miranda would still like him, because he's clearly doing it to say that she is easy and that she is there and that she means nothing to him. But Miranda is still in love with Turner even after that. So fast forward a couple chapters in the book, and basically Olivia is wanting to match make Miranda, and Olivia is determined to have Miranda marry her twin brother named Winston, I think. And then Miranda doesn't like Winston because Miranda likes Turner, and then Turner doesn't like the fact that Miranda and Winston are getting close with each other. Even though Turner has no romantic feelings for Miranda, Turner is always there to ruin everything and to kind of make snide remarks to put Winston down, his only brother and his younger brother. And Turner's also always there to create doubt in Miranda's feelings for Winston and things like that, which I found really freaking annoying. And then when we finally get to the part where Turner manages to seduce Miranda and they actually have sexual relations with each other, and she has her virginity taken, and there is a possibility that she could be pregnant, our hero Turner decides to tell her, I'm going to think about this, don't worry, I'll take care of it, and decides to kind of leave the house for 2 whole months. He did not come back to talk to Miranda about what happened and basically effectively abandoned her. And Miranda finds herself in kind of like in this lost situation because she thought that Turner was going to come back, declare his love for her, get married, and have the happily ever after she so deserves. But Miranda quickly realizes that Turner is never going to come back and that she has to fend for herself, especially since she may have been pregnant. So fast forward a couple of chapters, Turner realizes that Miranda is pregnant and he goes back to go find her and he demands for her hand in marriage. And Miranda tells him, I'm not going to marry you if you don't love me. And guess what? If you guys are marrying me for obligation, you don't have to because I don't have the baby anymore. And she suffers a miscarriage. So there is a trigger warning for miscarriage. So if you guys don't like it, definitely don't pick up this book already. But to add more salt to injury, let's continue with this rant. And basically what happens is that Turner decides to threaten Miranda into a marriage and blackmails her and says, if you don't marry me, your reputation will be in ruins. And Miranda was like, nobody knows, because the only person that knows that she's not a virgin anymore is Turner and Olivia, his younger sister. But Turner says, I have my ways. And that's when I knew he was not a good one. He was not, well, there was many ways that I knew that he was already not a good one, but this was also a reason why I know he's not a good one. Also, the only reason why he gave to why he never came back in those 2 months was because he was lazy. I'm serious. Turner says that the reason why he never came back and spoke about that night was because he was lazy and he thought that Miranda would always be there because Miranda is always there. There's no reason for Miranda to not be in his home in London. Why would she go to Scotland? Why would she leave him? Because Miranda always follows me, by my feet and like always worships me and things like that. So I just couldn't. I just couldn't at that point. And then further on to continue, they kind of have this marriage, right? And Miranda decides to herself that maybe she doesn't need love. Maybe she doesn't need Turner to like really like her and stuff. They could still be happy together with this companionship. And they literally fast forward a couple months later, and I don't know why, but they have this weird time jump. And Miranda finds herself to be pregnant again with their second child. And this time around, Miranda is smartening up and realizing that Turner has never once said that he loved her, and he only said that he loved being with her and being married to her. And now Miranda's upset by this because she really just wants a good marriage where Turner actually admits the feelings for her. But he never does. And Miranda's upset by this and she decides to, throw a fit, but then quickly get over it again. And then, ta-da, she's giving birth. And that's when things get a little bit sticky and a little bit messy because what happens is that Miranda has some complications with her pregnancy, and now the doctor is kind of saying that Miranda might not make it and that she might die from this pregnancy and that she might die from childbirth. And Turner realizes that all this time he's actually been in love with Miranda, and he begs and he pleads and he tells Miranda over and over again that he loves her and things like that. And guess what? Through the power of love and not medicine, she is cured and she makes it through the night. But we're not finished yet because although I hate Turner already, and I don't know if you hate Turner already, but let's continue with why I hate Turner again. Turner says the most stupidest thing I've ever read. But basically what happens is that Miranda says, Turner, can we have more babies? And Turner says, as long as you don't give me another fright. And I don't know why. I think it was just because the accumulation of like how much I already hated Turner so much. But the fact that he said, as long as you don't give me another fright, really pissed me off. And it really pissed me off because like we have control of our bleeding. Like we can control what rips down there when childbirth is happening. Like I can control it. Like what? Like the whole thing is just about pushing out that thing and doing whatever it takes, because that thing is lodged in there and it needs to come out. Like, come on, guys. Like, I'm so confused right now. And then our heroine Miranda just goes like, of course, like I won't do it. Like, yeah, because you can control yourself, and like through like medicine in the 1819 era is going to like miraculously clear you. And I also had it like a thing where I really hated the doctor because the doctor was completely useless. Like the doctor the entire time just showed up, delivered the baby, said she was bleeding too much, and then he was like, just throw like some paper towels and like some towels in there, absorb the blood, and like pray to God that like, you know, she stops bleeding. I gotta go run and deliver another baby. And I'm like, what? Like how? Like how did you get your license? Because like you suck. Like what? Like useless. It was just useless. I mean, like I get it because like historical romances and you know, you're back in the day, you don't have that medicine stuff, but like I was like, what is the point of this character? Like why did Julia Quinn even bother like writing this doctor? Because he's just useless. Like why doesn't she just make someone deliver the baby, because the doctor was useless anyways, and telling her to push is basically what he did in his medicine field. So I don't get it. To conclude, basically what happens is that Turner does not redeem himself. He does not apologize for all the things that he said or done to Miranda. Miranda has no backbone. She does not stand up for herself. She does not once go, you know what, I'm a beautiful person. I'm a phoenix rising from the ashes. I don't need to have Turner in my life to be happy. And I'm just going to, you know, be my own independent person and like stick with it. Because she did try to do that in London, don't get me wrong, but she never stuck with it. And she just kind of went like, you know what, yeah, you're right. Like, I should just marry you because like my reputation will be in ruins and you're an evil bastard. And it just felt like it was just an emotionally abusive relationship, and it felt like he always had this power over her, which I did not appreciate, which I did not like. And that is why I'm giving this a 1 out of 5 stars, and it's my worst book of this year. And that is why I had to rant about it.